a production of the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Visit us at mesachamber.org.
Thank you so much, Joan. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces and names on this call. I know I've gotten to meet a lot of you actually, which is great over the last couple of months as we're getting back out there doing events. And I definitely encourage you to reach out to our team. I'll definitely drop my contact info below, as well as some helpful links once we're done with this. If you would like to reach out, or if you'd like a visual on some of the information that I'm sharing today. But I again want to thank everybody for joining us this morning, right? And for the opportunity. Sally, thank you so much for having us to talk about this infrastructure bill. This was our baby this year. This was our big bill, and a lot of senators have big bills. This was a big bill. This is $1.2 trillion, and it's something that we got 69 senators to agree on in the United States Senate, in a place where we have a no vote majority in our party. So that's pretty astounding, and it's worthy of celebration because ever since Senator Sinema ran for Congress, her number one mission has been to show people that we can come together and get stuff done. And if this isn't a big stamp that says that's what we do and that's what we're supposed to do, then I don't know what it is, right? And so with that, I'm happy to kind of go over a timeline of what happened. I'm sure some of you are familiar, but for those of you who aren't, I'm just going to give a really top line overview. For background, I serve as Senator Sinema's outreach coordinator. I work on statewide outreach, primarily focusing on intergovernmental relations, our chamber relationships, and other business and economic development focused relationships. And so a lot of this is applicable to you. If you're supervisor sellers, it's directly applicable to the work that you're doing and some of the things you're going to be buying and purchasing. For some of you that are businesses, this is just using two examples, right? This is going to impact you indirectly in a lot of ways. That's going to improve the economy and create a lot of economic opportunity in our state. But with that, Senator Sinema actually led this bill with a group of senators who are interested in finally getting infrastructure done. This is something that has been an interest in Congress for some time now. It was always infrastructure week of the last administration. We're glad we actually got to do it here. President Biden signed the bill on Monday of this week. That was a nice little surprise. Senator Sinema was actually at that ceremony with was actually on the stage with three other folks, Majority Leader Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, who she co-authored the bill with, who's a Republican, and herself. And she was at that ceremony. She was just discussing that, from better roads to more reliable power grids to faster internet, more corners of our state, safer airports and cleaner water. This bill is going to do really good things for Arizona. So what's in the bill, right? I think that's what folks want to know. We don't want to confuse this with the larger reconciliation package, right? This is the hard infrastructure bill. This is the one we definitely we most certainly all want. And in it, there are a couple of major provisions. So the first one is better roads and bridges, right? It makes $110 billion investment, in to repair America's roads and bridges and other major transportation projects. It includes $65 billion for expanded broadband. That's to deploy high-speed broadband, expand broadband access, and help families actually better afford broadband. We knew that was a really big a need after the pandemic, right? The pandemic showed us where our cracks are in society and where we need to make sure that we're closing the gap, especially for our most disadvantaged folks. So expanded broadband was a really critical provision in that as well. There's money in here for water systems. So this is the strongest investment in clean drinking water and wastewater infrastructure in U.S. history. It's the biggest one. This is going to deliver clean water to millions of American families. In Arizona, in the West specifically, it has, I think, $8 billion in there to strengthen Western water infrastructure. That's aging infrastructure, water storage, water recycling, drought contingency plans, all the different components that lead to water actually being available when you turn the faucet on and allow us to keep growing this great state. Specifically, there's actually even $300 million in here for water reclamation operations under the Colorado River Drought Contingency Plan. So for folks that don't know, we're in a water crisis in terms of our watershed. If you go to Northern Arizona right now, if you go to Page, for example, right, the water levels are critically low levels. We're actually, estimates, public estimates, are that we're 1 or 2 years away from even like Deadpool, which is where water drops so low that you can't even generate power. And so we're going to be triggering automatically, because this is already approved, the Colorado River Drought Contingency Plan, which requires some money on Bureau of Reclamation's part to conserve something like 100,000 acre feet of water per year in the lower Colorado River basin. Outside of water, one another I think issue we saw during the pandemic was that our power wasn't as resilient as it could be. It's better here probably in Arizona than it is in other places, but that's not to say that we can't make improvements, right? So there's 65 billion in here to strengthen electricity grids around the country and promote resilience of power infrastructure, in dire places. So this is really to try to develop that 21st century electricity grid. Just like we need that water to turn on, we need that electricity to run if we're going to keep working. This isn't just a bill that might even seem like more provision for like Texas, right? So what's in here for maybe do we get anything in here for Arizona? We actually did. There's 8.25 billion in here for wildfire suppression. That's really good for the West, right? I mean, this was a devastating year for wildfires. We saw just how devastating the Telegraph fire was, for example, just outside of Phoenix in Gila County. And it's not just the fire, right? If you go to Coconino County right now, if you've ever been driven through Flagstaff recently, you'll see the flooding there. You would see the sandbags on the road, just a couple months ago. And so having money in here to support, the thinning of forests, the good management of public lands, especially federal land, because that is a really big responsibility. It was important to fund those accounts to Senator Sinema. So she was really focused on making sure that we got funding in there for wildfires. So this money is going to reduce hazardous fuels on those lands and just support a lot of critically underfunded accounts at the U.S. Forest Service that you might not even think of. For example, I've been following this issue pretty closely, but fighting fires isn't just a means of going through the forest and knocking down trees or building fire lines. You need roads. You literally need infrastructure to get there. And so right now, the Forest Service is critically underfunded in that area. And so this is going to help them take care of that backlog, actually reduce the costs on industry and the cost that they have to pass on to consumers on the kinds of wood products that they're taking out of the forest. So that's really good to see as well. We didn't forget about our tribal communities in this either. There's $3.5 billion in here for tribal water and sanitation infrastructure and resiliency. There's $2 billion specifically for tribal communities to support them and connecting them to high-speed broadband and building that infrastructure. $2.5 billion in there to complete, and $2.5 billion in there, to complete existing Indian water rights settlements. Huge. This is something, I think our office has been trying to handle for something like 6 years. I know the McCain office is trying to do it before us, but even like the White Mountain Apaches, water settlement can get funded through something like this. So it's great to see. Couple other settlements I think in Arizona that we wanted to note. There's the Southern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement and the Tohono O'odham Nation settlement, as well as the Gila River Indian Community Water Settlement. So a lot in the even the east side. One thing we're really proud of, especially, with Senator Sinema being the chair of the Senate subcommittee on aviation safety, that's the Senate Commerce subcommittee, is that she was able to include $25 billion in here to make America's airports safer. This is a formula allocation. Every single airport in the country, including Falcon Field, will be getting money to repair and upgrade airport terminals, runways, taxiways, and air traffic control towers. That's critical to airport safety. And if we're putting these projects off, these are really expensive projects. If we put them off, we're just going to put ourselves in a worse spot down the line. There's also a big investment here. I know people are excited about the prospect of rail or reinvigorating rail in Arizona. I know there's a big interest in. We've heard from a lot of cities and towns who want to see a route from Phoenix to Tucson. Who wouldn't if it was high speed and it lets you afford the I-10? It'd be great to see. There's a really big investment here in rail across our country. There's $39.2 billion in here to expand transit systems, increase accessibility, and reduce the nation's transit system repair backlog. It's crumbling in a lot of ways. And so, if we don't make those investments now, again, these problems just get more expensive. It'll also help acquire 24,000 clean buses, 5,000 rail cars, 200 station repairs, and thousands of miles of, related and track and signal work. And so even just for Amtrak, there's $66 billion in here to improve existing routes and expand ourselves into new cities. And that's hard in a country when you're really spread out. But if you can do it the right way, rail can be really powerful in connecting communities. And the last thing in here, I think it's really nice to note that this is the largest investment we've made in clean energy transmission and electrical vehicle infrastructure in U.S. history. I remember seeing Sally at Electromechanica earlier this year. How many we got? Like I think 4 or 5 electric vehicle manufacturers in the state in the last 2 years. This funding is critical to expanding electric vehicle infrastructure across the country. If you can buy a car all you want, if you can't charge it well, and you can't get it anywhere, you're not going to use it. And so by expanding, these are really low cost incentives to help build out an infrastructure that people want, but to get it at a competitive rate of return that industry wants to, invest now and not wait. And that's really good for Arizona. It's especially good for Arizona electrical vehicle manufacturers. And so, I think I just saw, our folks down the county down south. Lucid just got Motor Trend's Car of the Year. I mean, this is going to be the place to build electric cars. So we're glad to have supported that industry long term. Before I wrap up here, I just want to, kind of note, I mean, that was a lot of numbers. I get it. I'm happy to drop a link in so you guys kind of have a visual of what it is. But I want you to know that this legislation is supported broadly across Arizona, across industry groups, and across the country, right? In Arizona alone, the Arizona Chamber of Commerce was very supportive of this. The Greater Phoenix leadership was very supportive. Arizona Intertribal Association, the Nature Conservancy of Arizona, and then across the country, the AFL-CIO, the largest union, Business Roundtable, the National Association of Manufacturers, the National Retail Federation, the Bipartisan Policy Council, and even things like the Outdoor Industry Association and the American Hotel and Lodging Association. This is good recovery across the board, across industries, and we're proud again to have worked with folks across the aisle to get this thing done. It was a long road, and we still have more work to do. But with that, I'm happy to kind of hear questions, hear where people's interests are. If I can get a little, there are some numbers that I can get a little more specific on, but to be honest, we're going to be waiting for a lot of implementation here for a lot of the programs that are run from the top down or administered from the top down. But it's going to be incumbent on us and for our partners, at the chamber or at the, I'll say, or industry associations really, and like the league and folks like that, who, together we can make sure that our stakeholders in state know when this funding is available and know when they can make, their best case to fix problems that they see in their community. So with that, I will happily turn it back over to Joan or Sally or whoever, and you guys can go ahead and ask questions.
Thank you so much. That was great. I've been following it. I think that there's a huge impact. I see that states and municipalities are already announcing programs that for which they're expecting to get funding, and then probably are just raring to go. So one of the people who joined us after you began speaking was Mr. Ryan Smith from Phoenix Mesa Gateway, and so hi Ryan. Do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make about this great movement in our country?
This is huge for Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. There's $5 billion in there for terminal modernization, and we have a project that will replace our aging infrastructure. Without this bill and without Senator Sinema's and her staff's work on this, we wouldn't have that money. And this opportunity to compete for this grant is really huge for us. It's going to create competition. It's going to replace aging infrastructure, allow us to add an additional gate. So bring in more airlines. And again, we're super grateful for all of the work that Senator Sinema and her office and her entire staff, you guys were huge in this endeavor. So we're just really grateful, and we're excited to submit that grant. And we'll be looking for help because, without this bill, this project doesn't get done. And it's a $25 million project at the end of the day. So it's huge for us.
Excited to see you guys grow, Ryan. It's good to see you. I know we got to talk on the phone, I think right before as we're getting this bill initially passed out of the Senate, and we're like, this is like we have to get this done. I'm like, this is the biggest, this is the best investment we can make in Arizona right now, and we got a lot of money out earlier this year to support pandemic response, and we kept hearing from communities like yours, right, who are just like, look, we can really, we can come back from this really strong if we do it the right way. So it'll be great to see Mesa Gateway keep growing.
Yeah, thank you.
Joan, it looks like Councilmember Thompson has a question.
Oh, very good. Please.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for being here today. I think Sally and I probably saw you yesterday at 161st.
Well, that's so cool. I wish we could just be there all day. Come on.
Right? Yeah. That was amazing. And my question really is about the rail. As the commander was talking about, they really need to relocate the Union Pacific rail line to be able to expand the Air National Guard unit to accept the new aircraft. Are there any of those funds that can be utilized for that to help? I know it doesn't directly help Mesa, but for the betterment of our Guard units and national defense, are those funds available for UPR to relocate that rail line so that they can expand?
This is and sorry, Kevin, Councilman, I just want to make sure this is in regards to like the Guard base yesterday we were talking about, right? And the conveyance that they need. So possibly, I would think that funding though more likely would come through the NDAA or would come through some sort of defensive program. So I think it's that question, right? I think it's helpful to kind of talk about how this funding is coming down, right? A lot of money. This is I think it's 550 billion in new spending, and then there's some money here in reauths. So those are just funding continuous accounts that already exist and that we want to continue funding, right? So the new money has to come down in some interesting ways, right? It depends kind of on the category. So if we're talking about roads and bridges, for example, that's going to really be who manages roads and bridges in Arizona? Obviously, ADOT does, right? This is not, FTA doesn't come down, DOT doesn't come down and repair these bridges themselves from Washington, D.C., right? We do this, through partnering state agencies. And so they're going to get, for example, a $5 billion formula allocation. Then they're going to use on priority projects that ADOT already has a list of, right? If you want to have input on what projects are important to you and what's good for Mesa and East Valley, for example, right? ADOT's your guys in some of those ways. And then there are other pools of funding, right? Let's say even in the roads and bridges space, there's still some that is coming from the DOT down because these are larger scale regional projects. And so when we're talking about something like this, it just because like I would say the smaller you get on funding amounts or the smaller you get on funding items, probably more of a local administration, right? And then if you're getting towards bigger items, so there's something, I think there was like the Build Back Better regional challenge, for example. It was if you had a large regional infrastructure project or some sort of corridor that you're improving for a region, whatever it was, that are again in cost significantly more, and there are fewer awards at this level, then that's going to come from the DOT down so that they can make specific awards. And so for that project, again, not absolutely sure. There are probably a couple of avenues. I'm guessing it's more on the NDA side.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Councilor Schultz. Yeah, did you want to say something, Otto?
Yeah, thanks for being here. That's very interesting to hear about the projects. I'm wondering, kind of in tandem with the infrastructure bill has been discussion of various tax changes, and it's kind of gone all over the map. Obviously the projects have to be funded. So where do you see the tax issues settling out and in terms of paying for the project? We've had kind of a hard time planning because of some of the variables and the discussion about how the funding would occur.
Sure. No. So yeah. I do want to be clear, right? That there's two bills, right? So there's the one that just got passed, and the larger one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's two bills really, right? And so with this bill, right, the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure plan, right? We'll use two names there. This bill doesn't raise taxes at all, right? So this bill, it literally is, there is new spending, but that new spending is accounted for when we do it, when we scored it, right? When we did a CBO score, a Congressional Budget Office score. They can do an economic calculation looking at economic impact created or dollars estimated, right, and generated from these projects, and they do a pretty conservative estimate about what that is. And they have shown that it meets cost, right, at least, right. And so that's kind of how we got to these numbers, right. That was the big when we were coming up with this, a big principal part of what Senator Sinema was trying to do was say, hey, look, this is probably the number we can get to. Let's be honest, right. If let's not start, and to be fair, unlike the other bill, and this is just true on process, we didn't start with the number. We started with a list of priorities. And I think that's how you're really supposed to do it. You're supposed to really start with a list of priorities and decide how much is in it, or what you really need, and then let it get trimmed away, right? And that's what they did. And they got to that number. So no new taxes in it. I will say I'm not a tax, or I'm not a budget expert, so I actually don't know very, very closely exactly how the breakdown is. But my understanding, yeah, it's that economic impact. And I think it is, actually don't even think it's any deficit spending. Basically what they're doing is they trimmed other accounts. So they made cuts in other places, and then they increased spending right here.
So the tax debate is going on in conjunction with the other bill. With
the reconciliation bill. And in that bill, the senator has been really vocal that we're not trying to raise taxes on everyday Arizonans, right? We're not trying to raise taxes on Arizona businesses if we can help it. The senator came out in support of a proposal that is kind of like it was a proposal, it was a bipartisan proposal to raise taxes on 200 of the most profitable countries in the country, which on average, if you look at their last 3 years of financials, they have an average revenue of $1 billion. So not folks like you. That's for certain.
Well, I would say, but it's kind of gone quiet in terms of what's happening on the tax front for the last week and a half or 2 weeks. But I will say some of the discussion has been concerning because it seems to abandon principles that 5 years ago were important. So, for example, the easy example is the corporate tax rate.
Yeah.
The 2017 Act put the corporate tax rate where it did because we weren't competitive around the world with other corporate tax. Now, maybe a minimum worldwide corporate tax rate solves that. I don't know. But I hope when we're looking at tax changes that we're looking at good tax policy and not just pet projects that people have had over the years. I know the senator's pretty tuned into that stuff, but
yeah, absolutely. it's not, we want to support growth. And we know that there are important investments to make, and we want to make sure that they're paid for. But we need to go about the right way. Every dollar that we spend needs to be a really worthwhile dollar.
Sure.
Otto, I think that the genius of this package on the revenue front was that Senator Sinema and the group that put the bill together repurposed a lot of the CARES Act funding that went unspent.
Right.
So it was appropriated by Congress. I think it was 56 billion of this $1 billion package that is already allocated by Congress. So they just repurposed it, and it was smart use of our dollars.
There were unused accounts, right? So that's what I was saying. We reduced spending in some areas, right? It was or money that we had already previously appropriated to areas.
Great, thank you.
Good, great question. Thank you. That was good information. Councilmember Thompson, are you raising your hand again?
I am, man. I just can't get off the rail thing. So, I can't get off the train. In Mesa, we're doing a down in Southeast Mesa, just south of Gateway Airport. We're actually working with UPR, Union Pacific, and a lot of our Southeast industrial businesses, CMC Steel, Matheson Gas, Fuji Films, a lot of those CRM, Crum Rubber, to run a rail spur coming off the Rittenhouse alignment. It'll be approximately about a 6-mile spur. We desperately need help getting the funding in place for that. Hopefully the senator can help us with that. It's a big deal for not only the industrial companies that are already out there to help take some of the tractor trailer traffic off of the roadways, local roadways. but it'll help also with businesses that are looking to come to Mesa that need a rail access. So whatever the senator can do to help us in that front would be amazing.
Well, let's keep connected on it. We have a great relationship with the city, obviously. So let's keep that up. And as you guys are working on this project, and it sounds like it's a pretty high priority for you guys, yeah, let's stay posted on where this funding is and what we can do to make sure your application is seen right and that it's given the absolute fair consideration it deserves.
Awesome, thank you.
Isn't that the nice answer we like to hear? Let's stay in touch. Very good. Any other questions for Inder?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Inder, we've had several members of the Mesa Chamber ask about timing. And as you alluded to, there are different buckets in this bill for different projects and different industries. Can you talk about the timing of when the money will flow to either ADOT or water infrastructure fund at the state level, or what's the timing of things?
Yeah, so again, it depends on the account we're talking about, right, in the bill. But I'll say generally for the major funds. So let's say a lot of the road funds, this is spread over 5 years, right? So every fiscal year, there's a different allocation of money. And so we don't want to get all that money out at once. We don't want to inflate costs. We want to make sure that, projects have or that different projects that are on a list, right? So you might not, you might be applying for funding or let's say you're working with ADOT on your project. And you're like, I really want to get this funded this year. You might say, well, this year is not the year that we're trying to do this. It's not quite on our, where it's matching our priorities yet, but we're going to get funding, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And those are really good opportunities. These projects, you're going to see, build outs or uses of this funding for the next 10 years, right? Or more, who knows? But yes, for some accounts, it's spread over 5 years. I think that's airports, for example, same thing, right? So I think Ryan can talk about this, but it's spread over a chunk of time. And then let's say some of those are formula programs, right? Again, these are formula allocations on how those accounts work. But some accounts, again, are going to be these big projects from the federal government down, or that you apply to federal agencies for. And those accounts are also funded over 5 years, I think. So it's that, let's say that they're, if we increased funding for those regional, Build Back Better, infrastructure grants, right? These larger ones, that account's funded over a couple of years, so that we can keep getting money out and projects out over time.
Thank you.
All right, I'm mouse button challenged. Any other questions? Also a great question, and I thank you for asking that. All right. Anybody else?
Joan, with that, I mean, if there aren't any other questions, I'll say, I'll happily drop some links in the chat. I'll drop my email in the chat. Like I said, this is incumbent upon us to know, when things are coming out and what information we need to share with folks. It's incumbent on our industry association partners, our great folks like Eric who help our communities apply and get the right things. And we're gonna be working together to make sure that as many federal dollars come to this state as possible. Once money is already approved, it is in our best interest to get every single dollar we can to this state, right? And so that is, if it's not coming to us, it's going somewhere else. So that is something that we are gonna absolutely stay focused on going throughout this. And I ask for your partnership in that. I'll say on your end, the most helpful thing, I was on Westmark yesterday talking about this. So I'll just recall that I said on that call, the most important, it can seem overwhelming how much money is in this. That's a good problem to have, because there's a lot of communities in need in this country. And so if in your business, I'll say this is more for at the community level, because we're talking about infrastructure. So that's why I'm referring to it that way. But the best thing you can do is I think, your priorities and your constituents really well. You know your people really well. Start with the problems, decide where your priorities are on your projects, and then let the funding match to it, right? I think a lot of folks, they look at it and they say, well, here's the opportunity, what can we stick to it? And I think that's one way to go about it. But a lot of times these applications, the windows are not big. You need a lot of technical support. You need a lot of manpower in your organizations to do it. And so setting those priorities on what you want and then making sure it matches the funding, that's where I see applicants be the most successful with this stuff, right? They decide they decide what problems they have, decide what they want to see, they know what they are, and then those opportunities come down. And that's usually the major difference. If we can help you identify that kind of stuff, please reach out to us on that as well. I mean, with that, I'll drop my information in. And thanks again so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Eric
Thanks
was
for
right.
being
You're
here.
wonderful. Thank you. We really appreciate you being here. Have a great, very busy rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank
And
you.
Thanks.
Sally, if there's any readouts from this, I do have to get prepped for my next event. If there are any readouts from this, or Eric as well, or Joan, let me know. Happy to talk.
Sure.
And with that, I'm going to drop my information and pop out.
Thanks so
Really
much.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Cinder.
Be safe out there.
I'm going to start with the federal stuff, and then we'll jump down to local. Obviously, at the federal level, we're really happy with all the work that Senator Sinema put into this bill that Andrew talked about. If you rewind to August, she was taking a lot of arrows for holding things up, but what she did was force the Republicans and Democrats to come together and come up with a great bill. And it's great that her office is taking a victory lap because it's well deserved. A couple of weeks ago, you heard about a vaccine mandate that was being placed on businesses over 100 employees. That is currently under a court stay, facing a significant constitutional challenge on several different issues. I would venture to say that I think that thing's going to fall apart, but we're watching that one closely because it will affect our members and how they deal with a potential vaccine mandate on private businesses. And then if you watched any of the drama that occurred overnight in the House, and Inder hinted at this and Otto's talking about it, it's the reconciliation package that is making its way through the House. This thing is, it's a steaming pile of junk is what it is. Puts a 15% additional corporate income tax on top of what we have nationally to pay for a bunch of social programs. CBO has scored this thing that it actually hinders growth throughout the country. It's just a bad bill. We have signed at least 5 different letters opposing this thing, but it'll probably go up for a vote in the House today. It looks like it faces an uphill challenge in the Senate, but hopefully cooler heads will prevail. At the state level, the East Valley Chamber Alliance agenda that you all adopted and sent to the board of directors was adopted. We joke that that's like giving birth, but that sets the stage for our 2022 legislative session, which will be interesting because we've had, since we talked, 3 different legislators, in addition to the several that have already resigned to either run for other things or have just tapped out. We've lost Becky Nutt, who's the Republican whip over in the House, Charlene Fernandez, who represents the Yuma area. She is the majority leader in the House, or excuse me, minority leader in the House. And then Diego Rodriguez, who is running for Attorney General. So the turnover in the legislature continues. What does that mean? It just means that with new people coming in, we're going to have a lot of educating to do on economic development and business issues. Another thing to note at the state level, and this impacts Otto and other folks who practice taxes, the education groups, Save Our Schools Arizona or any of the other alphabet organizations, we're trying to put the tax reforms that the legislature passed this past session in response to Proposition 208, which was the surcharge on top of the highest tax bracket in Arizona. Their efforts to put that stuff on the ballot failed. So we will proceed with a compression of the 4 tax brackets in Arizona down to 1. The cities and towns will get more money out of that. And there is a special bracket or identification for LLCs, which impacts our small businesses very well. So moving forward, those will go into place and we will not see those on the ballot. At the county level, of course, Steve Chukri has resigned his seat. I think there are 24 applicants for that particular position. If Chairman Sellers wants to tip his hat as to what he's thinking, we'd love to hear it, but they have some some work to do to fill Mr. Chukri's position. But that particular position on the Board of Supervisors represents Mesa, and we look forward to seeing who is selected and working with that person going forward. Then the last item, at the local level, the council adopted two things of interest to the chamber. One is a local business registry, nominal fee, some paperwork to be done, but if you own a business in Mesa, at least the city will know now who is operating. As we understand it, there are opportunities to say, I don't want this information made public, which is great. But at least in Mesa, we'll know who's operating where in an effort to be able to get information out to businesses and let them know about grant opportunities, about all kinds of things that can help them. That, and then the redistricting. The council districts got moved a little bit here and there, and they adopted those maps here at their past meeting on Monday. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any question. Covered a lot of issues.
Thank you, council members. Where did he go? I thought we had two council members here. Lost one. Any comment that you want to make, Kevin, about any of the remarks, or Jack, anything? Are you guys done?
I think Eric was spot on. You know, I did have reservations. I know we had all talked about having a business license in Mesa forever. Even back when I was on the board, we had discussed it. And you know, my biggest reservation was for those that work from home, that have home-based businesses, ensuring that their home address, their personal information wasn't readily available for public viewing, because there's some folks that work from home that that are public safety persons that may have a home-based business that don't want to share their information outside of what's already at the Corporation Commission. Now, granted, at the Corporation Commission, you can't really do you have to know either the business name or you have to know the principal owner before you can actually do a search and find all the documentation and everything else. And so I just wanted to make sure that we had something similar to that, because once it's out there, it's a Freedom of Information Act away from all that information being displayed to the public. And so I just wanted to make sure that was protected. So they put those concessions in, which was a really good thing. Just the redistricting, District 6 is shrinking a lot. I'm losing pretty much everything north of baseline from our district. So I had some concerns. I really was trying to get them to move the boundary to US 60, which is only a half mile north. Because in essence, what they're doing by shifting it to baseline is you're isolating an entire neighborhood, two neighborhoods, Chrisman Crossing, which runs between Chrisman and just shy of Signal Butte. You're putting them south of the 60, disassociated, I guess, with their new district, which is District 5. So if you have a council member that lives, let's say, in the Los Angeles area, what's the odds that they would actually care what happens south of the 60? And that can be an issue. And so I was disappointed in that piece. Yesterday, I did sign on to, I helped Congressman Biggs pin a letter to the IRC to host, and they haven't really held any public meetings in the East Valley related to the redistricting of our legislative and congressional districts. And I was looking at our or at least my district, and it's a mess. And so I jumped in with Congressman Biggs and pinned a letter, sent it out to the IRC. Yesterday, we had over 96 community leaders and about 8 or 9 elected officials. And we pinned a letter asking the IRC to host a meeting or two here in the East Valley for our communities. So hopefully we'll hear back.
Stay connected to Mesa Chamber social media, email newsletters, Monday morning message, and mesachamber.org to always know what's happening at your Mesa Chamber.